classic Doctor Who, that concluded its 26-year run by sort of sauntering off into the scrubland there. When New Who became a thing, it came positively pelting back out of the darkness. I remember that 15, 16 years later when Chris Eccleston and Woman of the Hour, Billie Piper, made Doctor Who the TV success story of the year, actually probably the decade, come to think of it. All of a sudden, Billie Piper she's fastened to the brand again following the 2025 season finale. But the BBC have chosen to sort of close things out on New Who, as they seem to be calling it now, just as it started, sort of with a documentary. Do you remember this one? Way back in 2005, Doctor Who, A New Dimension from the Confidential team. That started everything off. Just a half an hour sort of package, launching or relaunching the show. And that was really, really lovely. But when this latest retrospective was first announced, it came with not many details at all, really. I was quite suspicious about it. Just this single image of the cast of the 2006 series, Series 2, reunited, thick as thieves again, with the promise of a full hour's worth of nostalgia and backslapping, basically. All put together by the Doctor Who Unleashed team under the name 20 Years of New Who?
20 years in Wales, yeah.
Yeah, 20 Years of New Who in Wales, I think, is the full title there from the Doctor Who Unleashed team, and it's out now, so everybody can watch this and rewatch it. And remember, whenever it was that you came in on it, why you fell in love with Doctor Who in the first place, as well as perhaps when you fell out of love. I don't know. Results are probably going to vary. Sarah, over the years, we've seen so many retrospectives on the classic series, for one reason, one occasion or another. Mm-hmm. And there's been lots of sort of all-encompassing profiles of the whole legend of Doctor Who, the whole IP, both official and unofficial. There was one on Channel 5 not that long ago, in fact. But this is a really curious thing, I think, a specific marker, a retrospective specifically on New Who. Now, as somebody whose sort of fandom started with that, and you've discovered everything from before, since that, does this feel strange, just an event like this?
No, it doesn't feel strange, because I think it needed doing. It needed a pin put in it, because, yes, it's a continuation of classic, but it's its own thing as well. And I can understand those fans who do view it as almost like a alternate universe, like Star Trek, the Kelvin timeline kind of thing. But yeah, it's a success in its own right as this like offshoot from Doctor Who. But yeah, it was so special because it was the underdog that nobody thought was going to succeed. And obviously they were laughed out of the park when they were going to move everything to Cardiff. It just wasn't done, it was London or Manchester, basically. And to see it kind of just bloom into something, to this juggernaut. And it was, like those first kind of 5-6 years, it was an absolute juggernaut. So when I heard, Russell wasn't going to do anything, I did kind of feel a bit flat, really, because I thought, well, you're supposed to be so proud of this and you're not going to mark it. And I am glad in a way that it was the fans that kind of gave him, the kick up the backside to do something. I mean, his point is valid about, we've just had the 60th anniversary, now we're having a 20th, which is why
I'll be honest, you know me, I do like an anniversary, but I completely understood, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, us fans, we love an anniversary, but I suppose the general public might be a bit confused. But I think to kind of frame it in Wales, maybe for like the normies, I think this was actually probably the best way to go about it. Yes, I was pleasantly surprised, I'll say that, when it came out.
I remember when they announced Doctor Who was coming back, Luke. I was
I lost you there, Dan.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so did I.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can now, yeah.
I was struck by the decision when it came back to not make it in London because of all the other sort of glossy shows that were being made in London at the time. And London being obviously the big tourist destination, Doctor Who being associated with British culture and that kind of phone boxes and black cabs and all that kind of thing. And I couldn't understand how it was going to work. And they said, oh, well, you know, Cardiff, we can do this, we can do that, we can do the other. And it was like they cast some sort of spell in a similar way in which they make areas in Canada look like New York City and things on American productions and things like that. Now I feel so naive in underestimating Wales and Cardiff like that. But do you remember Doctor Who coming to Cardiff? I know you were a lot younger then, but it seems like a big deal. And whenever I go to Cardiff, even now, they do seem very, very proud of it. I mean, what was it the big deal that they're trumpeting about here in labelling it as 20 years of New Who in Wales?
Yeah, it was massive to Wales and the Welsh economy and Welsh. And just Welsh in general, BBC Wales at the time didn't have a fledgling drama department, and drama productions regularly come to Wales. And now you have Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO. You know, Watchmen was shot in Wales, Game of Thrones is shot in Wales, House of Dragons, yeah, the Jeremy Irons one, yeah. House of Dragons shot in Wales. Everything, Havoc, Tom Hardy's new film is shot in Wales. Everything comes to Wales now, and essentially it's because of this one show, showing how versatile it can be. If you want a cityscape, you can have Cardiff, Dublin as London or New York, and then 20 minutes away you've got endless quarries, mountains, fields, forests. You can pretty much the countryscape is so versatile. It's wild what you can get out with. Whereas if you were in London or England, you have to travel a lot further. So not only is it helpful for production, but it just trims everything down and keeps everything quite compact. Where realistically, you're only going to be driving 20-30 minutes out of Cardiff, and you're in the middle of nowhere with nothing around you. But yeah, it's massive. Because where I lived, so I lived at the top end of the valleys before I moved to Manchester. And up there, I think they shot Karen Gillan. What's it? I forgot it. Amy Pond. Oh my god, they shot Amy Pond's house about 5-minute walk away from my house. So when Matt Smith crashed the TARDIS with little Amelia, so that was 5 minutes away from my house.
You must have heard the crash.
I was funny enough, I went up and I was on set and I lost my phone, and Matt Smith found it and handed it back to me somehow. Really weird. But yeah, so that was from the episode of Crimson Horror that was filmed just around the corner from Amy Pond's house as well.
Oh, wow.
On top of the mountain by my house, that's where they filmed Tooth and Claw and Clara riding a motorbike in the 50th anniversary. And then just about 5 miles away from that is where they filmed The Green Death with John Pertwee. So yeah, it's very much ingrained in Welsh culture now. Even if you still drive through Cardiff, you still see road signs for Daleks. I know the experience has gone on, but they're still there. But the Welsh people are very, very proud of it.
I'm so glad that the Daleks are still there. I love seeing them on the side.
Yeah, it's cool. And obviously we got the giant tribute to Yanto Jones as well. The Yanto Jones shrine is still there. But yeah, no, it's massive.
You can't quite see that. You can't quite see the Yanto shrine in the documentary, but we did get a look at Cardiff Bay itself, this specific area. I've been there several times now, Sarah, as I imagine that you have. And every time I go there, I find at least 3 or 4 new sort of locations that I didn't recognise. And there's a moment in this where Russell T Davies is speaking to the host, Stefan Powell. He said, this is where the Doctor and Martha stood. And they, oh yeah, and I had lunch there, and I never even realised Torchwood Towers over there, all that kind of thing. I think it's lovely that they've attached this documentary specifically to to Wales and the Welsh production. It's completely earned, and so I do hope that people, obviously the people who work in the television industry in that area, we often hear how it's been a kind of, not exactly an academy as such, but it's been something that's expanded with the industry, and in the way that sort of pushing out from London into places like Manchester have as well. So it just seemed like the expansion, the explosion in Cardiff of not just Doctor Who, but eventually all of those productions has made this big difference. The synopsis here says 20 years ago, Doctor Who began filming in Wales. This fun and insightful documentary gives inside secrets from the cast, crew and writers past and present, including Ncuti Gatwa, David Tennant, Jodie Whittaker, Billy Piper, Karen Gillan and more. Running for nearly an hour. There's a danger when you watch these sort of shows, I feel, Charlotte, you think, oh, an hour? Are they really going to have enough? Is it really going to be well made? Are they going to cover it all? You know, you can't be all things to all people, particularly in an hour with a show like this. You're always going to sort of miss out, maybe giving a nod to somebody's favourite character or moment or whatever. But 58 minutes... You've just watched it today, I understand. How did it hit the mark for you? Because you're also a child of the new series, aren't you?
Oh yeah, my start was 2005, and actually when they spoke about the familial sort of links in this documentary, and they talked about families and watching it and the passing it on, that's what got me going, because it was my dad who basically said, because I like my adventure stuff, I like some sci-fi, and I just said to him, should I watch this Doctor Who thing? Like, should I give it a go? And it was him who said, no, I really think you should, you'll enjoy it. I watched it when I was a kid. So it was lovely to sort of see in the documentary them echoing an experience, which I think a lot of us had in 2005, that we sort of got nudged or sort of told, no, give it a go by family. And I think that focus should always be there in this show. And it was actually really refreshing, considering I feel like so much of the promotion before this, they were running away from that aspect. They were trying to sort of say, no, now it's for the under 20s, now it's for this demographic and that demographic. And it's like, no, you already had one that you'd perfected. And it was lovely to see that talked about so much with the actors and the production people that brought it up and the showrunners that did bring it up. And I think overall there were bits of this I really enjoyed, which I didn't think I would as much. I liked how in bits of it, it was very much the ground, which I feel like they haven't done loads before. So it was a bit of seeing stuff and hearing people and stuff that I hadn't really appreciated or known a lot about. The stuff about Matt's costumes before he settled on the tweed. I had no idea about those possible costumes. So it was lovely to sort of see that process a little bit highlighted. And to hear sort of Moffat talk about how when he started sort of his auditions for his first Doctor, he actually had an older Doctor in mind. I didn't know that. I thought he always sort of had a younger in his head.
Even though Moffat has spoken about that now and again in sort of print interviews and things like that, I don't remember ever hearing him talk about it on video before, despite the fact that Stephen Moffat's been interviewed so many times.
I've never heard him talk about it in detail like that. I've heard him reference how Matt sort of came in and was amazing, and on the spot they were like, that's the Doctor. But to actually hear him talk about his process a bit and what he was sort of had in his head as a possible Doctor, and how Matt sort of just completely disrupted everything and just appeared, and they were like, no, we're going to completely chuck out what we had in mind. When it did talk, and like Billy, I know she has spoken about her experiences, but I feel like she hasn't gone so personal like that about how she was in her 20s and it was sort of this really formative thing for her, and how it sort of made her realise she could sort of be an actress and it wasn't just a sort of fluke. She could really go out there after Who, and sort of she's proven herself at this point. The only
mentioning some of the things you've just touched on there about seeing people that we've heard speak over and over again, and other people that we've not heard so much from, or not heard from in years and years and years. It does remind me of this guy. Now, in the early days of Doctor Who Confidential, David, I don't know if you ever remember this, but there are certain people who seem to be on all the time, and this guy was definitely one of them. So that's Ed Thomas. And there's a famous bit of footage of him revealing his Dalek to Julie Gardner for the first time originally. And he seemed to be on Confidential all the time then. And of course, he's not a star. This is probably somebody who never imagined that he would ever be on camera. But eventually got to the point where people like him became kind of the expanded cast of the show because of Confidential. And so he's an integral part of the series success, his creation, I suppose you could say. He's like 2005, his adaptation of that classic design. So I did think it was nice to see him again. So there was that, but I've never even heard or seen, to my knowledge, Ray Holman being interviewed before. Certainly that I can remember. The costume designer on Doctor Who, off and on again for several years. So I felt there was actually quite a good mix in this.
Yeah, I it was nice to see the people who do the hard work and the hard graft, and as well, it sort of took that away from the Billy and David show quite a bit, which I thought went on perhaps a little bit too long. I did enjoy the Billy and David thing, and like Charlotte said, I did enjoy some of it. I really did enjoy some of it. I liked seeing and hearing about the costumes, and I liked hearing about how, basically, they held David Tennant hostage in Russell's flat. They wouldn't lock the door and wouldn't let him go to basically say that we'd like you to do the part. I did enjoy that sort of stuff, but for me, it was. You mentioned Confidential, and my iPlayer is trolling me because after that documentary, it took me into the first edition of Confidential, and it woke me up somewhat because I was somewhat disappointed, shall we say, with the lack of time given to. Initially Christopher Eccleston, but one can understand that. But the lack of time given to Peter Capaldi's time.
God, yeah.
It was almost like a comma in the documentary. It was a brief mention, but Peter Capaldi, for me, was Matt Smith's time wasn't enough for me, and it was very much on the David Tennant sort of character. David Tennant character. Sorry, no, the David Tennant portrayal of the Doctor. Tenure. Yeah. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. And I thought it was a travesty not to have more Peter Capaldi. I also found maybe it's the limitations of production. I also found the Zoom content somewhat irritating, and that made me switch off.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing, I feel, when you see a project like this build and promising to encompass so much, and to boast of interviewing people who, I wouldn't say they've been invisible for a number of years, but we haven't seen speak. And then when they do appear, they're not sat in a comfortable studio somewhere talking with one another. They're completely isolated on Zoom, sort of speaking in their spare room, largely in the way that we are. You think, well, okay. And I do wonder how quickly it could have been thrown together. Unknown here in the live chats, very much lines up with what you've just said. It glossed over Eccleston, Capaldi, Smith somewhat, and oddly enough, the second Tennant and Gatwa era as well. It was biased, focused on Tennant, Whittaker, and Wales and Cardiff. To be fair, the clue is in the name. New Who in Wales, so I don't mind that at all.
Totally.
And I think that I get the impression, because I get the impression that this might have been put together quite quickly, Ashvin.
Yes.
Now, we saw at the start there when they're on Millennium Point, Russell T Davies and the host Stephen Powell. He says, "Oh, it's April the 2nd as we're stood here," and you think, "Oh, well, okay, that was a couple of months ago," but that's not actually that long, is it? So, do you think that this was actually, if not thrown together, a kind of last-minute commission of sorts? Maybe they heard those complaints that Sarah was mentioning there about people who maybe felt disappointed that there wasn't something official. So, what can we do in a short period of time? What's your instinct about this?
Yeah, when I heard him say, it's April, and I was like, that's literally like, what was that? A month before the season started, was it? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
around
March,
that.
wasn't it?
I
It
think so.
started.
Yeah. I was like,
10
okay,
days. 10 days, Ashvin. It was 10 days.
yeah, that was. I was like, okay, this is suspicious. But yeah, I think, I'm sure it was similar to that Tales of the TARDIS. It just felt like it was due to what the fans wanted. So he was like, okay, I've got to do something because, and I thought it was okay. I liked seeing some of the old faces return, but you can only do so much in an hour, yes. But I did count the minutes, and I did see that Jodie got the most, and that irritated me.
Did she really? Go on. So,
Yeah.
have you got a breakdown? Have you got a breakdown there?
Yeah, it's sort of a rough one. I think she got about 12 to 13 minutes of it was spent
Really?
on that era.
Good
And
stats.
Yeah. Capaldi, he barely even got 2 minutes, his entire era. We didn't even hear anything about Jenna Coleman or Clara, not even once.
Or Freema
She was the
Agyeman
longest
didn't.
No, Freema.
No, nothing on Catherine Tate. I don't even think nothing. It's really strange, and even River Song, these are really important characters. Not even a mention. I just thought it was very strange. So it just, I think it was thrown together at the last minute. They just got whoever they could get, and But it was nice.
It was thrown together. Russell has come out and said the only reason this thing exists is because he saw how much fans were clamoring over the 20th when he came back, and he didn't expect it. So he's like, right, I'll put something together. So yeah, I know you're thinking about it, but it is genuinely, this is how it come about, because there was such a hoo-ha about the 20th anniversary, and he's like, we haven't done nothing for it. Right, we'll make an Unleashed special quick. So it is very last minute. So
I'm sorry, Russell. How could you make that mistake again? For the 60th, you didn't have enough content to celebrate it.
Because part of me thinks maybe, it sounds like they care after all, Charlotte, but they have made this, you're quite right, they've made this mistake before.
Yeah, and it's just Russell's head, I just don't know where it's at right now. And it's so funny because the other thing I took away from this was, God, I miss Moffat just talking and just giving interviews. I don't want him back as a showrunner, but I just miss him because he just comes across, the more he seems to be away from this show, he seems to just get wiser and more, you want to listen to him more. And he's always been entertaining, and I like his sort of self-deprecating humour. That's what I've always enjoyed with Moffat. But when he was talking about this show, I was just like, there's a bloke who knows what's happening. He when he was talking about how it needs to change and how you need new people in, and some of his other comments, I was like, that's a sensible chap. Russell was just, I cannot use those words about Russell at the moment.
It is strange that despite all the faces that were on screen, including the woman who is very much the focus of Doctor Who at the moment, Billie Piper, it does seem to me that a great many people are focused on what Stephen Moffat had to say. Here he is.
It is to be strictly observed that everyone who works on Doctor Who does it for a while, not forever. You must process out the door and another lot come in. That's really quite important. So I feel that quite strongly about Doctor Who, is that one of the reasons it's the immense survivor that it is because every so often it is completely different.
He's right.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's giving it to them straight, isn't it, Sarah?
I wonder if he regrets in hindsight returning after all.
I think it was probably helping out Russell, to be fair, Sarah.
Yeah, but because they are mates, aren't they? But yeah, no. Yeah, I just don't know how much help he actually was, because wasn't Boom a rejected script from the Capaldi era? Like, well, don't just give off, drafts from other doctors. But
looking back to the to what he actually said there, though, I think it's loud and clear, really, when somebody who's got the industry experience that Stephen Moffat has got, never mind his experience showrunning Doctor Who, the wisdom of well over 3 decades, right since Press Gang in the late 80s. This is a man who's probably made every mistake in the book, as well as has had considerable successes. Says something like that, maybe it's time to just go and accept you've had your turn and move on. At the precise same time that everybody in the fandom is looking at Russell T Davies, even the people who maybe haven't built up as much pent-up anger as certainly a great many of us have. But everybody wants this guy to kind of move on or take a back seat, go on God, to get the message and accept the fact that he's clearly, completely, creatively spent out. Never mind the ideological stuff. And there Stephen Moffat is kind of spelling it out. This is the quote that this is the one that everybody's talking about. And I think it's completely understandable, Luke.
Yeah, I think so. I think Doctor Who is all about change, isn't it? I think the entire show is.
I've never been convinced of that, but I think creatively it thrives on that new blood. It needs that.
It needs it. When you went from Russell to Moffat, you went from like the kitchen sink drama to the dark fairy tale, which Moffat hates. But it was a bit more ethereal, a bit more space, and then it kind of. I'm in the great rewatch right now, so I just did series 10. You could tell by series 10 he was. It was just tired, and he was recycling his old ideas. The companion's become a Cyberman again, and you can tell it's a bit burnt out. It's like the CGI is quite laughably bad at some points in it. To be fair, not knocking the CGI artists, but when you compare it to what come a year later with Jodie in 2017 or 2018, sorry, it's like chalk and cheese. I think Doctor Who thrives on change and format change, and I think the closest we've got to it now as like. How it should be is probably the format of the Flux, where it's a serialized story. It's one story over the course of 6-hour-long episodes or 8-hour-long episodes, and then it seems to have regressed with Russell and gone. Nope, he's taking it straight back to how it was, because it worked in 2005, and what worked in 2005 with less episodes now is not necessarily going to work for a modern day audience, and I think. Yeah, Russell's an incredible writer. Obviously, like if you look at Years and Years, and It's a Sin, and what he's done, he's like when
he's an industry. He is an industry giant, isn't he? Over the last 30 years.
If you were going to tell someone brand new to Doctor Who who's never watched an episode in their life and only knows Russell through like Nolly and Years and Years, and It's a Sin, if you tell them he's coming in to write Doctor Who, they're going to be like, oh wow, this is going to be good, and then just. Yeah, it's just something missing with it right now, and I think season 1 was such a good jumping on point as well, because realistically we didn't have no mention of the Gallifrey. We hinted towards the past. You had the Daleks come in. Everyone knows the Daleks. If you're going to relaunch a series, you have the Daleks as your main villain, it's the iconography of Doctor Who. You don't bring back Stutek. I'm so sorry, and then make it a big giant dog.
I did like the fact that they did have a lot of Dalek sort of content and acknowledgement in this documentary. Unknown says again nothing about the costume design of Capaldi, Eccleston, Tennant, or Gatwa. No, but again, they've only got an hour. They can't go through literally everything. That's be like a multi-part story. But I think they did. Like Charlotte said, they looked at the Matt Smith one, which was probably the most interesting story. They told us how instant David Tennant knew exactly what he wanted to wear as soon as he walked in, and they told us that, and there's no story to tell there. No. But when Ray Holman talks about the design process, the pitfalls that they encounter and how they overcome them, that's a story that's worth the screen time, in my opinion. I mean, maybe there could be some multi-part series covering all of this in segments eventually, Ashvin. It's unlikely this will be the very last Doctor Who documentary ever made, isn't it? So that perhaps, and when this stuff comes out in some refreshed form on Blu-ray, there's lots of this sort of stuff already on special features on discs. But I think it's important to state that although a lot of Doctor Who fans will have leapt on this, like as we have, it's also there for the general public too, who perhaps aren't dyed-in-the-wool fans. They just watch it when it's on if they remember, and they might see it listed and think, oh, that's been on for 20 years. Oh, I used to like the bloke with the bow tie. Or, oh, I remember the girl with the girl who waited or whatever. I might watch that if I've got a spare hour, and they'll have that kind of just that nostalgic part of them teased a little enough for them then to be bumped over onto the Whoniverse app or something like that. Or I think that's the function of something like this, not to encompass all things to all people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I think, for me, it definitely, I grew up with Billy Piper and Tennant. They were sort of my first memories of the show. I was probably about 5 years old when I started.
Wow.
So it was lovely seeing them again and seeing some of that old footage and those episodes that I've watched countless times. So it definitely does bring back that nostalgia, and I think everything that they shown was nice at the very least. Like, for whichever era it was, whichever Doctor it was, we got a little bit of something, and I think at least, I think everyone will probably get something out of it. I don't think it's probably the most I've enjoyed a episode of Doctor. I know it's not the actual show, but
a production.
Yeah, like it made me smile.
Because although Christopher Eccleston, obviously that series, that initial season was a huge success, it wasn't until it expanded with David Tennant and Billy Piper and then Freema Agyeman that Doctor Who really did arrive and start to dominate the cultural landscape in Britain. And so to put these two actors back together in the way that they have, you think, okay, well, where was Freema? Well, she's on stage at the moment, so she's probably busy. Where was Catherine? Well, she's filming some. I think she's just got a new series, and she could have been anywhere. So I was surprised actually how affected I was by seeing David Tennant and Billy Piper reunited in this. David Tennant hasn't been my favourite person over the last few months. In fact, in quite a while. And so to see him hugging his colleague and friend here has sort of humanized him a little again for me. And whilst this was the focus, or at least the framing of the whole production, I don't think it went too far. I think if you're going to get together two people to talk about the whole of New Who at this particular point, I can probably see why they went to them. It makes sense. It's not a wrong answer, shall we say?
Is she visiting him in some sort of prison?
I don't know, but they have a whale of a time. Look, we get the whole range of emotions here in these sort of little 5-minute bursts there, and it's very affectionate. It's very warm, very nostalgic. It's strange to hear Billy. I mean, you forget that Billy Piper's now 42, Sarah, and she's not 19 anymore, and she's been around for so long. And then she's talking about herself like she's some sort of old lady, and sort of in a mocking way as well. So it's not terribly introspective, but it's very, very human. And we all have these kind of conversations with our friends, don't we?
Absolutely. And it was nice. They've always had chemistry, but it was lovely to see Billy be so honest. Like when she was saying about how she felt frightened when she was first acting alongside Christopher. It just really humanizes them, because I think you do forget sometimes they are just people with their own flaws and insecurities. They're not always the persona that they put out on screen. And again with me, David Tennant's been irritating me so much, but here he was lovely. I loved him recounting his exasperation about the Daleks, because obviously Billy didn't have.
Or I like that bit.
Yeah, she didn't know what a Dalek was. She'd not grown up with him, not like David. And now she felt guilty because she didn't have the correct reaction to seeing the Dalek for the first time. She's like, oh, oh wow, it's a Dalek. Whereas David was like, oh wow, look at this. You know, he was a proper fanboying over it, and I like that like they were teasing each other.
Yeah, I think Tennant worked here because I feel like it's so easy to forget how much of a fan he is. Because I feel like so much of his interviews lately have veered towards other stuff.
Yeah.
That to have him here just go, oh, Daleks, and get all excited about a Dalek. You go, he's a little boy, like, and it's lovely to see that with Tennant. I'd rather have that than him telling me how I should live my life. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I think
totally.
that's why this worked in bits, because it was just pure actors and people, producers and other parts, just talking about the show again, just talking about their jobs and what they love about their job. And I feel like we've been needing to see more of this, and it shouldn't have taken this
No.
to showcase
No,
it so much.
I didn't
which is
feel
a
like I
shame.
was. I didn't feel like I was being talked down to by a bunch of
No.
elitists, which really
Yeah.
does. It really does make a change of late. Tom Haynes in the live chat says, "I wasn't a fan of Eccleston, but Tennant was my Doctor back in 2008. My first episode was Midnight. What a starting point!
Wow. Yeah.
Everybody's got their different starting points, and I love this. The fact that now all these like 20 years worth of kids have, in theory, found the show, had their very first episode, Ashvin, and sort of and stood the course. Maybe they only watched it for 2 or 3 or 4 years and then moved away from it. But perhaps they'll come back to it in time, or when they're parents of their own, even if the series isn't on or in production, it'll still be on iPlayer. They can go back and hit them up. What was your first episode?
I don't know. I can't remember. I was like 5 years old, but I think the one that I definitely remember, it must have been the Christmas Invasion. I used to have the DVD of that and
Yeah.
they were bundled together. I used to just watch it again and again and again, just on repeat. And then definitely loved rewatching those. And I think it was probably the start of series 2 where I started my journey with the show. So yeah.
Series 2, the unforgettable Series 2 that led to a conclusion, a 2-part finale that people, even now, nearly 20 years on, people who aren't fans still talk to me about this when they know I'm a Doctor Who fan. Oh, remember when he lost Rose on the beach? You know, it's kind of moments like that have become like, oh, the one with the maggots for the classic series. These, some fans still would have you believe that all of this stuff is sort of pure soap opera stuff. But these are the moments that have stayed with generations of people who've grown up with New Who, or who maybe they were adults when it first started and they become sort of captivated by a show that they would never have given a look at prior to that point, because this kind of content, this kind of drama does speak to people.
For me, that was the best end of season that Russell wrote. That end with Rose.
And I think
Unforgettable.
Why it sort of hit you so much is it's the fact it was the loss. And I think when you're young and you're watching that, the fact that he by all intensive purposes, Rose, he couldn't see her again. And it was that sort of shock of, wow, they've done it. Like, you're so used to watching TV, and I think it's true now and it was true back then. Usually you get happy endings. Usually you get sort of your characters resolved in some way that's good. Here it was just like, no, we're going to tear them apart. And those two acting on that beach, they completely sold you how heartbreaking it was.
And we were less than a year. We were less than a year and a half on from the debut of the series. The comeback at that point, it had taken a very short period of time for it to grab the British public and for them to have invest maximum amounts in those two actors. I mean, particularly Billy Piper. At one point, they speak to Russell T Davies in this, who when he came on screen, his was kind of the last voice I wanted to hear. But hearing him talk about Billy Piper like this, and he recounts how people considered it. There's a certain section of the public and the fandom who thought that casting Billie Piper was stunt casting and would never work. And he describes it as having a great secret, that she was the secret weapon way back then. And in many ways, I can see where he's coming from with this, because it's one thing to cast a good actor in the role of the Doctor, which is so enigmatic, but to put somebody who's meant to be a normal member of the public to play opposite a character as sort of big as that, where the actor's encouraged to kind of to be themselves and to roll with it and to be creative. The companion, if it's done properly, should actually be quite a fastened-in character. So I do see what he's getting at. But there was a lot of talking up Billie Piper in this, and I do wonder, was she chosen as the person to save Doctor Who again by this point, or was this a few weeks on? Because Stephen Powell, the host of this, did mention that at one point, didn't he? I think it's in a sort of coda to the documentary. Oh, well, the team, we didn't know, but there was this, there was that, there was the other. So I'm never quite sure what to believe about that, you know, Luke. It's because these things, and this was made, as you said, this was made so quickly, and we still don't quite know what was reshot when and all that kind of thing. So do you think here that part of this was sort of reminding us why we like Billie Piper so much in the first place, and to refresh us of her undoubted sort of talents and range?
Yeah, it's a trick. I thought this was going to be, this is the presentation of Billie Piper as the Doctor. This is why
So
she's
did I.
so great. I really thought it was that, and the fact that I know it went out on iPlayer. It went out on iPlayer for the UK, but it was screened on BBC Wales in Wales, obviously. Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be. I know she was fantastic casting. It's a shame they didn't touch on Freema Agyeman's Martha at all either. I was like, oh, let's just quietly skim over that one. But yeah, I mean, they pasted her head on Chewie's body, didn't they? Realistically, for that regeneration scene, and
It looks that way.
I think people are kind of clocked on. But no, I think it's talking about endings as well. I know it's a shame that he left and he didn't do another season, and I know he went through the rigmarole through it, and he went through trouble with it, and you know, there's sacked Russell, sacked Julie's, but I think it's such a good thing that he did leave in that first season, because you introduce your fans to regeneration straight away, and you've got that cliffhanger ending. I think that's, if you're going to bring back Doctor Who for one season, I think that's the perfect ending to introduce this new Doctor, introduce everything straight away, and get the regeneration straight in. And I think if you've got a fantastic actor going into another fantastic Doctor, I think it was perfect. I think season 1 and 2's finales are just untouchable, and I don't think they'll ever be touched apart from the Doctor Falls. I think that was fantastic. But yeah, I thought, yeah.
Even though it wasn't planned, they absolutely turned the loss of their lead into an advantage in the finish, I think.
Yeah, massively.
Well, look,
sorry.
Those 13 episodes were so good. All of them were. There isn't, a bad one in the bunch. And I think you're right. It's when we talk about character arcs, we've got this really alien Doctor who's kind of like, I don't want a companion. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. We're not doing this. By the end, Rose has humanized him somewhat, and he's prepared to give up his life. And I think, I would have loved to have seen him again. Of course I would. But I think in hindsight,
it worked out for the best.
It's worked out okay. And maybe, it wouldn't have been as good if we had done a second series.
The important thing is that when it went into confidential, you had Russell saying that when David Christopher Eccleston regenerates, it has to mean something, and also that it's important for every Doctor to have their silhouette, and the clothes should be definable, and they shouldn't be changing clothes every week, and they shouldn't be and you see there was a lot of clashes between what Confidential was saying back when it started and what it eventually became, and I do think Sarah's absolutely right, and everything, Luke and Charlotte, and the fact that if he'd had stayed, I think it wouldn't have. I think it just gave it the impetus and the kick up the Watsits, just to say, look, you thought this was just a normal run-of-the-mill program. Bang, take that.
Yeah.
And it was just gave it the shot in the arm. Not that it needed a shot in the arm, but it gave a real sort of, my God, what's going to happen next? And that regeneration meant something, which is what we're not getting at the moment.
And I still think to this day it's the best regeneration that
probably
the
was.
best generation.
Another thing this reminded me of, Luke, was the in the general public losing David Tennant. How much doubt there was, reluctance, resistance there was to anyone at all replacing him. Never mind casting him with a complete unknown who seemed like he just got off his paper round. And so when they go through that story, Charlotte, about how Matt Smith just went into, like, Stephen Moffat was going to cast basically the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Of Matt Smith. You know, he was going to cast the first guy they went to, obviously was at the time Patterson Joseph, middle-aged black man. You know, and they end up with the extraordinary Matt Smith, who's become an international star.
I think Moffat telling that story actually says something really important about casting this part, and just to sort of, and I think it also speaks to what Russell isn't doing right now. But when you hear him talk about that, it shows how when you are looking for your lead, you need to have the most open audition process going. You need to sort of open it up so everybody can come and show themselves off. Because if you have that open approach, you can get a diamond in the rough like that. You can get somebody who nobody really had in their heads as a sort of, oh, maybe we'll get this guy, or let's have this type. You could just have this newbie, this sort of up-and-coming actor, absolutely blow everybody away. And if you don't have that process, then you're not going to find actors like Matt again. And I feel like the show is sort of stuck in this rut that our current showrunner is just going to people he's familiar with. He's just going to people he's worked with before because it's comfortable, because it's easy, because it's safe. When actually, this show works best when you sort of have that risk factor of just seeing who comes to the door. And that's what Matt represents. And like you said, I think people forget, I've said this before, people forget because of how good of a job Matt did.
Yeah.
There was so much sort of fear and doubt around his casting. There was people who were absolutely livid that they'd cast Matt. That they were like, oh, my Tennant's gone, and you've got this youngster who looks like, you said, like he's not even 20 yet, and he's got hardly any experience, and he's sort of been presented in like that.
People hadn't seen him in anything. People hadn't seen Matt Smith in anything, but were still convinced that they hated him. I mean, that was how prejudiced they were against him. Ashvin. Anthony Parkinson in the live chat here says the Unleashed special had inadvertently served as a picture of how many of the cast now hate Russell T Davies, Stephen Moffat, Bad Wolf. So many of them wouldn't even spend 10 minutes for a Zoom call. You see, I think this is, thank you for the comment, Anthony. I think this is an example of some of us. It's very easy for one to see the things that we want to see, the things that reflect how we may be feeling. I suspect my inclination is that this was, just as Luke confirmed there, that this was put together relatively quickly, and they probably hit up who they could, who was free.
Can I just add to it? I've been noticed. It's you know, this might be a bit of digging and a bit of a reach, but it's obviously Capaldi's left. He had a massive affinity for the show. He seems to have left quite jaded. Obviously, Eccleston has left quite jaded and had problems. Shooty is, we don't talk about Shooty because that'll come out eventually. Millie Gibson, something will happen. Obviously, Freema Rajavan's not coming back. There's loads of people that always seem to be leaving with some kind of controversy or some kind of background politics. Jodie Vera, everyone absolutely seems to, everyone that left Chris Chibnall and left at that time, absolutely seems like, oh, we're best friends. This is amazing. We're the greatest time ever.
Yeah, you noticed the lads weren't there.
They didn't even get mentioned.
But
exactly.
Tosin Cole is now the busiest guy ever. His career's actually taken off and he's doing well. But it's like the way they speak
good
about
for
the
him.
affinity, the way they speak about it and the affinity they have, and it's like it seems completely chalk and cheese. I don't know if it's because the
I don't
Chibnall
know,
era was
because
very,
I
very
have
closed
heard
down.
I have heard stories of Tosin Cole in particular felt very bitter about how he was treated on Doctor Who, how his character was written,
Really?
this is stuff that it's just some stuff that I've heard, that he doesn't really wish to be associated with the show anymore, or for the time being, or for whatever reason. And just as Luke says, he has gone on to secure a couple of really quite impressive roles. I've not seen the things that he's in, but apparently he's great in them. And sure enough, when Tosin and Mandip first appeared in the cast, I did what a lot of Doctor Who fans did, and I went and looked up these people for some sort of reassurance that they had got the right people, because I was desperately worried about the show by then. I thought, okay, she's done this. Okay, a soap or this or that or the other. But then again, Billy Piper. And then I looked at him, and it was okay. Stage production after stage production. Thought he looks like he's the one I wasn't worried about. And in the end, I couldn't even remember the guy's name until this.
Here's the thing. I've had this impression for a while. And good for Mandeep and Jodie. They seem to be incredibly close and really good friends.
It was quite sweet, yeah.
If there's one good thing for me that's come out of that production, I didn't enjoy it one bit on screen, but at least those two have got this really strong friendship, which is lovely. And when they talk, you can feel it's genuine. But I've always felt like the lads.
It doesn't translate to the characters, does it? That's the strange thing.
No,
but I agree with you.
And I've always felt like Bradley and Tolson have sort of never had that closeness with Jodie and Manny. That's just a feeling I've had for a while. So the fact that they were hardly mentioned, really, I understand that they couldn't get them on screen. They're both very busy actors, but it felt like they just talked about the sort of Jodie and Mandeep sort of part of that era. Nobody else really got a look in. Dan didn't get mentioned. So that's what I feel like with that era. Those two have come out really good mates. I don't know about the others.
It's quite funny as well. There's people completely rag on Tennant for wanting to. The Tennant's coming back again. Tennant's coming back again. He hasn't come back that many times, but he has come back. But realistically, if you're going to do a multi-Doctor special, he's literally, apart from now Jodie, he's the only one that actually can feasibly come back. Capaldi won't. Matt Smith can't. Eccleston won't. Shooty can't. So it's literally, if you're going to do a multi-Doctor special now with New Who's, it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to be Tennant that's going to come back, or Jodie now.
I'm so sick of multi-Doctor stories. I'm so fed up of them bringing 2 or more incarnations of the character back for the time being. I sincerely am. They've even managed to cheapen that, in my opinion. In fact, looking back at what Ashvin was just saying, actually, it really has rung true. Because although I've enjoyed some of the last 2 seasons to some degree, I've been very open about that. There's been lots I've found to enjoy here and there. It was, strangely, this edition of Unleashed which has affected me more as a fan, seeing and hearing things that I haven't looked at in a while, clips of stuff, or people talking, like Ed Thomas talk about his Dalek, all that, genuine emotion from people, pride in having worked on it. Just as you said, Sarah, Mandip Gill here, who was, landed with a terrible character. I'd forgotten by the end of her tenure on it, Mandip Gill, every time she was interviewed, she was talking a load of ideological bullshit as well. Here she is. This is the girl that I remember who was so excited to be on this show in 2017 and 2018, to the point where I just thought she was delightful. And she, of everybody on it, she was the one who seemed almost fanish, and it's as if she was pinching herself the whole time. And it's as if the show beat that out of her. And I'd forgotten, and she's got that light back in her eyes here. I also loved seeing Arthur Darvill on screen too.
Why is Arthur Darvill not aged at all?
The portrait of Dorian Gray.
It was 20 years ago, so it was lovely to see. It was lovely to see him again. Very successful actor, but he does a lot of stage work, doesn't he? So he's not somebody
he's a musician as well.
Who will go on I'm a Celebrity, Sarah, or things like that. So it was lovely to hear him speak as well. So much affection for him, and Pearl Mackie too, who I wouldn't say I'd forgotten about her, but she was part of it for such a short period of time. made a sort of big impact in a character that I genuinely liked. And so it's like, it was just really nice to see her.
It was weird because I was really happy, but I got these pangs of sadness looking at like, oh, I used to love you, I used to love you, I used to, and I thought, oh God, we're never gonna have it this good again.
Double-edged sword, isn't it?
But yeah, I loved Bill, even though she reminded us that she was a lesbian every week.
She didn't write them, though, did she, Pearl? To be fair to her.
But and it frustrates me because I think, oh, if she'd have had another season, I'd have loved to have seen that character develop because I did love her chemistry with Peter. But yeah, it was nice to see it. I mean, it was lovely. I got this massive pang of love just seeing Arthur and Karen again. And it took me by surprise because obviously we've seen Karen in other things, in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers and Jumanji. She's never really been off screen, but to hear her talk about, that time with Matt and with Arthur, and I think, and in her accent as well, not in a Nebula accent.
She's not done Hollywood, has she? Not at all.
No, and I think this is it. It brought out the best in everyone. Everyone was just sat there having a good time, big smiles on the face, fanning out about all the good times.
There was no
And
ego.
No, there were no ego. There was no politics, and you just think, how much is it? Is it these actors, or they're just being told you've got to do these talking points in interviews? Because there was just none of that nonsense, and it was just really natural. And it was just an absolute joy. And this is, and again, Dan, I've never warmed to the Yaz character. I mean, I gave up anyway after The Timeless Child, but I'm like, well, actually, Mandip seems really lovely. If I saw her at a convention or something, I would actually talk to her. She seems really lovely and just happy to be there, and she's got that good experience. So I am glad, despite the total disaster of that era, there was some good. I'm really genuinely happy for her and Jodie.
I mean, and that what you said about the sadness and also the happiness of seeing those people again, and the point that you said, is it the act? Are they told to go on those sort of talking points? There's a brilliant clip of Tom Feldman, who played Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter, that he was interviewed last night, and about are you what about all this J.K. Rowling stuff and He said, I don't look at that stuff. Lot of love for J.K. because she's brought the world Harry Potter, and the world's a better place for Harry Potter and everything. And I think it's probably the fact that they aren't probably given the right sort of. It's okay, love. The right sort of PR advice. It's just sort of like, don't answer questions on that. Just say how wonderful the show is. And
I saw that clip as well. He gave what I would call a Tom Cruise answer. Very diplomatic,
absolutely.
Very charming, and then on to the next question.
Well,
and I think if they did that more, we wouldn't have the mess that we have now.
Well, no, it's like, I was reading an interview with Jonathan Bailey, and this is a little thing that he said, and I was like, oh, that's so cute, and it just shows why people like him. That on set of Jurassic World, Spielberg did a FaceTime with the cast for that movie because he's an executive producer on it. And he said, so I knew he was doing these FaceTimes, and like the other actors went before him. And he said, and somebody was like, oh, we think you're next, Jonathan. And he said, I literally went and hid on the set somewhere because I was so nervous to talk to him. And because he's a massive film buff. And like, that's what I mean, and what David's talking about. It's actors when they sort of lower the guard a bit and you sort of see the true who it is. Not either a talking point they've been given or something that somebody said, oh, you should probably veer this or do that. It's just authenticity. And I think so much of these actors, even, I can't believe I'm saying this, even Jodie came across quite authentic and real and not fake. And it's like, how have you managed to do this with somebody.
I've got to be honest. Her voice is still. I'm sure it could grate cheese. It goes right through me.
That's West Yorkshire for you.
But I do know what you're saying. She did seem to be a bit more authentic, a bit more natural, and genuine in her. I mean, she was dressed in a very feminine way again. She just seemed far, far happier. And whilst, you know, I wouldn't go, so I wasn't remotely pleased to see. I wouldn't care if I never heard that voice again. But on a human level, like you said about the friendship between herself and her co-star, you know, you would not begrudge anybody that. That would be inhuman to think in that manner. You know, I genuinely wish them all the best. But people can come so far and change or show a different side to them depending on the circumstances that they're in. Stephen O'Neill says it went downhill during the Dr. Huddersfield era, the Jodie Whittaker era, and there's been lots of people picking through. There've been people who aren't keen on all the eras here. There's been somebody was just saying how much they hated Series 2 back in 2006. So you know, you did Tom Haynes was missing Matt Lucas again. People that just weren't there. All that kind of thing. Bless Arthur, you know, Arthur Darvill. People are a big fan of Arthur's. And I hated Clarus as the terrified monk there. I hated Clara when I first watched it, and then it obviously changed his opinion. And so watching a documentary like this, a presentation like this, it can remind us of the journeys that we've travelled, I suppose, with the actors and with the characters, for better or for worse. Sometimes there's characters that I've loved at the start, Ashvin. I've ended up thinking, okay, you can go now. I've had enough of you. You can go. It's only to be... we're only human. We're only human, aren't we? Another thing that's also sort of niggling away at me, particularly of late, since the return of Billie Piper, is the idea that sort of anyone can come back now. I think obviously since Russell T Davies came back to the showrunner's chair, there's people in the live chat asking about, you know, would you think Stephen Moffat could come back? Stephen Moffat has been very clear. He's got zero intentions of going back. He said it multiple times. Since Russell has come back, full enough, he's even over on X, where he's becoming more and more active on social media. It's very clear he doesn't want to go anywhere near the show in that capacity again, for his own reasons, I would imagine, probably in line with the video clip that we looked at earlier on. But as regards casting, obviously we've got the precedent set now that not only past Doctors can come back, but past companions playing whoever they're going to play. And people are talking quite a lot about Matt Smith again after Stephen Moffat mentioned this. He said, I WhatsApped Matt this morning, obviously at the time of recording, saying it was 15 years since Fish Custard, if you remember, and that Matt Smith had replied to him on WhatsApp, I wish I was on that set now. And exactly.
So do we, Matt. So do we.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah. Moffat followed it up with, see, you see, Matt, don't leave, and looks straight down the camera at his former star, the man he turned into a sort of national treasure, really. It was a nice moment. I like this side to Stephen Moffat. I'd forgotten how much I like this guy.
Yeah, me too. I'd got a kind of warm, fuzzy feeling. I do. I've got to admit, though, I warmed to Jodie on this a little bit. I mean, obviously the accent doesn't grate as much as for me. I'm used to that accent.
Sarah, I want to be clear. The accent doesn't grate on me. Her voice, not her accent.
I know.
It's her voice.
Different.
The tone of it.
But that was the thing, because she does that sneery voice when she's acting, especially when she was in Doctor Who. She wasn't sneering, she was actually quite humble, I thought, especially when she was talking about the crew as well. I thought that was a nice touch, how everyone kept mentioning the crew, because they're the ones that make it all work, and you never really get to see that side of things. But yeah, the one person that made me kind of get the hackles up, it's Chris Chibnall. I just can't listen to him. I really, I thought, having some distance, what was I going to be like? And I was just like, you, sir, are just a bell end. I'm sorry, you.
Mr. Glum strikes
My
again.
Oh,
my one regret of Doctor Who is that poor old Jane Baker didn't live to see his car crash of the seasons, because I know Pip did, but well, some of it, but that when he was so frightfully rude to them back in 1986 on the open air BBC program, which exists on your season 22 collections, should you have them, as a DVD extra. It's almost from that day onwards they put the voodoo on him, and it certainly shows up with the quality of some of his, or most of his writing, I have to say.
Yeah,
And I'm glad that it. Sorry,
the,
Charlotte.
the main thing that sort of did heckle me, and I think they, especially with what they said at the end, they opened it up with the tease of the Billy sort
Yeah.
of spoiler, and like him holding the rose and sort of saying, well, what, we've got something to show you. And I was like, okay, it probably won't be much. I'm not expecting a massive thing about Billy, but it might be a couple of lines, her giving us some information. And it was just her sat there going, I would come back. Yes, love, you've always said that. You've
Yeah.
always said that you love this show and that you'd come back. That's not actually new information about you. It didn't clear anything up. And like I said, the fact that he's added, oh, we didn't know about the Billy thing while we were filming it. So then why tease it at the beginning? And I think with the way the Billy thing has gone down, the last thing this production team should be doing right now is teasing and saying, oh, we're going to tell you something, and they're not actually telling us anything.
Shall we hear Billy Piper talking about this?
I would
in her own
come
words?
back. What's funny is that I never feel like I've left Doctor Who, because there is this huge Doctor Who afterlife, which is, yeah, obviously people still really want to talk about it. It's a massive fandom, so we do conventions and we meet lots of the fans, and there's always features. And it's always on the TV on some channel, and a new generation pick it up, so it never feels like it's over, like it does with all the other jobs I've done. So coming back is really good fun, but I also and so I would do it, but I still feel like I'm in it. Just Lord.
She looks absolutely gorgeous there. What have they done to
She
her
does, yeah.
face in that CGI thing? She's stunning.
Yeah,
Absolutely beautiful.
So all it is she slipped there. God love her saying,
Yeah.
so coming
Yeah,
back.
it's just
Yeah.
But like I said, that's not new information. So you don't do the tease. That's just, I would have rather they've just had that clip at the end. It would have been a nice sort of thing of her starting to sort of show she's very happy to be back. Sure, have that clip. And I think, honestly, people, the more they sort of leave I've said this before, they can't leave this limbo for too long, I think, with the Billy thing. If it gone down well, they probably would have been able to. Because the excitement would have been there, the sort of fans just sort of thinking about it, doing theories. But it's gone down like a lead balloon.
Well, the rumours are though they're very, very close to signing with the new streamer. The rumours are kicking around that something's happening sometime soon. That they are quite close with another streamer, but who knows?
Is it you and Dave?
Yeah, people are obviously going to have lots of questions. I haven't heard Billy Piper say much about this myself in the past, or if I had, maybe I'd forgotten. Maybe I've forgotten. I don't know. So I did enjoy hearing her speak, if just briefly, about this. But of course, it's like the elephant in the room, isn't it? We want her to be more precise, but she couldn't. And I wasn't sure whether she was acting or not, sort of feigning, I wouldn't say disinterest, but as if she was musing on the subject, whereby you think, well, had they spoken to her by this point? Maybe they had, maybe they
Dan,
hadn't.
On a point of English, can I just say that so coming back is really good fun. That could be taken in a different way. It could be referring to the fact that she came back for the end of Tennant's third season, and also as Bad Wolf.
Exactly, yeah.
So
It's saying something
we're
but not saying it.
assuming, yeah, we're assuming that it means coming back for this, but we don't know when that was filmed.
Exactly.
So it could mean that she was talking about coming back in the past rather than coming back in now. But they didn't make it clear. And that's the issue that I believe we're talking about, if I'm right.
Yeah. It was sort of like, it felt really added on at the end.
Yeah.
So we
Just-
don't know any more than we did
No.
a week ago.
Sorry about that. I'm
And
so
I bet
sorry.
you know what? I bet neither does Billy either.
No. She just looks confused, doesn't she? I don't fucking know what's going on.
I wouldn't say that I feel that I was missold this documentary, Ashvin. I think they were very clear about what it was. But just like Luke said, I did kind of expect, if not a surprise, then some sort of acknowledgement, particularly when you look at this picture and you see them together like that and the symmetry there, the place we are in Doctor Who history right now. I think, well, okay, it's up to me to manage my expectations, I feel. They clearly can't say too much for the time being. It's probably enough that she was there, but people are going to carry on speculating, aren't they? And usually that would be part of the fun. But the fact that the series left televisions less than 2 weeks ago, arguably at a creative low, does, in all seriousness, it's kind of no laughing matter. And I think that in previous years, putting out a documentary like this, full of warmth, full of nice clips and things like that, would have perhaps eased the passage of a ropey season finale of one of Russell's sort of usual affairs that, you know, is kind of flashy and noisy and doesn't make a lot of sense. But in light of the fact of what happened and Caption Gate and everything else, I can see why this documentary may not have had the riotous reception, the jubilant reception that they would have intended it to have. I think it was put together in an aim to please Ashvin, but I just don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to satisfy many appetites. Is what I'm saying. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just again, I just think it was just done for, you know, we've got to do something for the 20th anniversary, because there wasn't really any. I don't think there was anything in season 2. Maybe the midnight thing, but I don't know. So I think it was just done as a sort of safety net, just do something, throw something together. It was, again, it was nice. Yeah, it was nice to see some of the old faces return and talking about, you know, how much they loved working on the show and the nostalgia. It was really nice to see that. But yeah,
needed more Capaldi. Nobody's going to argue against that point, are they?
Yeah.
But I think this could have gone a lot worse. 20 years of New Who in Wales. Myself, obviously.
It wasn't as bad as the car crash that was the 50th. Let's be honest. So I can live with that.
I tell you what surprised me.
Oh, the 50th was fantastic.
No, the fan thing after. Do you remember when they had all the
guests?
That wasn't a documentary though. That wasn't a documentary though, was it? It was a sort of a live special.
I tell you what did surprise me, and I think maybe it was definitely not maybe, it was to the benefit of it. I thought there'd be more of Russell in this. I
think he knows, doesn't he?
I think he does.
Well,
how can he not?
It felt like that, Luke. Like this was almost an acknowledgement on screen of him sort of going, I shouldn't speak a lot, should I? I should probably be in the background a bit, do you know, like, and let other people take the sort of the forefront and sort of be the people. And that's what I thought afterwards. My thought was, I was just like, oh wow, Russell's actually got a bit. I almost feel like this is him being humbled a bit. That he didn't just stand there and say how brilliant he was and how everybody sort of had this whole, like, I thought they'd be backslapping him like no tomorrow, and it wasn't. So it was, like I said, it was to the benefit of it, but I just thought that was quite noticeable.
Tony
I think they
is
already,
on the live
made a
chat.
documentary about him anyway on BBC before the
Oh,
series
yeah,
came out.
so
Anyway, so he's already
Russell-
he's had his time in the
Russell-
sun.
Russell's had he's more than his fair share of attention from the industry broadly, I think. But I think usually there would have been more of him because I don't think he can help himself, Luke. I think he is quite self-aggrandizing, you know. Usually,
Well, it's his God-given right, Dan. Okay, it's his God-given right.
God.
Doctor Who is my God-given right.
Big T is in the live chat. Tony Farrell there, who says, "Sarah, I'm shocked, but I agree with you. I'm not quite sure which point that
I
is,
think
but
it was the
wise.
Chibnall comment. I'm sorry, Tony. It drove me to it. I can't help. It was very unladylike. I know. I apologise.
We've got lots of comments here on the special itself as well. Thank you, everybody, for getting so involved. Ian Scale says, Pip and Jane Baker knew how to construct coherent plots. Well, they certainly did enough to keep me amused. I love their stuff. I love this stuff when I was a kid. Stephen O'Neill reminds us that Billie Piper is a better actress than Jodie Whittaker. She's got a damn sight more range and more star quality. I think Jodie Whittaker is fine in those kind of parts like she did in Broadchurch, but hasn't the range to play a character like the Doctor. This'll be asks, I'm late. Has a new showrunner been announced? No. And Rob says Billie is absolutely stunning. Bring back Jackie Tyler, says Chris McFetridge. Right, yeah, there was very little in the way of Jackie in this sort of extended cast in this as well. But then again, some companions didn't get a shout, did they? Never mind any of them. It's beginning to look. I'm beginning to think that Billie back might be genius, says Ian Scales. This is a turnaround, Ian, despite it being a desperate gimmick. So somebody's already making that journey and changing their mind, it seems, in the live chat. And Anthony Green simply says, I don't think they have any new information to actually give. That's the impression I get to. Mr. Matt has put something really quite scandalous in the live chat that I don't think I should read out because it could lead to court action. But you go for it. And
I've just read what you said.
and we have the Zero Room in the live chat as well there. Matrix Lord says there is no speculation. Russell T Davies doesn't know what happens next. Total panic choice. They had no Doctor, and not for the first time either. Rob is a big fan of Capaldi, but then again, who isn't? So yeah, it's well, Matrix Lord isn't happy. Making Billie appear is the biggest mistake in history. You know, I agree with you. I think I'm still no warmer to this than I was when I first heard about it and actually saw it. And Darren Wilshaw says, as far as retrospective shows are concerned, nothing will beat the 30th anniversary. 30 years in the TARDIS. It was a fantastic production. That set the bar very, very high, didn't it? Kevin's documentary that they expanded to the VHS. My God, that was great. And to think that was just 30 years as well. We're only 10. Oh, God, now I feel old. I'm going to gloss over that.
Oh, I forgot to say. They filmed the location work for the Five Doctors in Wales too.
They did. Yeah, up in the Brecon Beacons. Up in the Brecon Beacons. Yeah.
So Wales is actually Gallifrey.
In more ways than one.
Much storage. So thank you everybody for all the comments. Yeah, that was Stephen Powell with Russell T Davies there. I don't know what to make of Stephen Powell. He seems like a pretty down-to-earth, nice kind of guy, having the time of his life. I don't begrudge him that either. All smiles, all shackets, all the time. So fair play to him. It was, relatable people, fronting stuff that means well. I'd forgotten that Doctor Who could give us this kind of stuff, Ashvin, just like you. Yeah. And as new Doctor Who sort of creeps up there in its age, and there's all that uncertainty about what could be next to follow. Well, to follow this guy. Where is he? There he is. He's left under somewhat of a cloud, like a sort of fart cloud from from some sort of old cartoon, really. So we're not in a great place at the moment. But I did feel like I was amongst friends, and that some effort was being made to kind of reach me, Luke. And I know this wasn't made for me, but it was, but it wasn't, you know? I mean, there was a moment in this, actually, where Russell T Davies, and this my final point, I think, has to be this, because there was one moment where I did shout an expletive or call an expletive out at the screen, was that they, in summary, Stephen Powell did ask Russell T Davies, you know, what do you think is the... what's the beating heart of the show? What's the most important thing about the Whoniverse?
Oh yeah.
And I was waiting. I wonder what he's going to say. And when he said the fans, I actually went, fuck off.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, does he mean just some fans, like the 4 or 5 that he decided weren't terrible people who needed to be driven away? Him and his dopey mate Chris Chibnall. Of all the things, I couldn't believe my ears. But other than that, I thought, well, that could have been something that was sort of put together in production that seemed like a good idea. Did anybody else have that moment?
I laughed a lot. I did. I went, you think, Russell? Really? You think?
Really? When you sang that we're all horrible?
I just laughed in that whole segment because it was just after the era we've just had, to then have them spend 5 minutes saying the fandom's brilliant and we love you. And it's just like, yeah, you've not just spent 2 series insulting us every chance you could, doing plot decisions which you know were just going to annoy the fandom, and being lovely whistle on social media to fans. It just...
Yeah.
Telling fans to F off, employing morons like Jinx Monsoon to come in and do a couple of days and insult everybody every time they speak to the press. You know, decision after decision that said anything but this. But maybe somebody's had a word, just like you said, Luke.
That was the only bit that felt false. Everything else felt real. In this, that was the only bit where I was like, okay, you've done this so you can, like, say, look, we do love you.
Pull the other one. Russell, I think it'll be a while before I really want to hear from Russell T Davies again. I got to be honest, if ever, but I accept that results are going to vary. What did you think? We've had some great comments in the live chat so far. People picking out moments that stood out to them rather than their favourite moments, and the things that they feel were missing that could have been criminal in their non-inclusion in this special. That's probably do sum up their New Who experience, which I think to some degree depends on how old you were and how you found the show and all that kind of thing. But generally speaking, I thought this was a win. I think we should take this as a win. Obviously, Doctor Who Unleashed, both seasons of that, the various specials, they are up on the iPlayer to watch in perpetuity. If Doctor Who does come back, maybe that'll be back in one form or another. I don't know. Maybe, but then again, it's understandable if Stephen Powell and the people, if they move on from that too, it's there for you to watch. If you've got a TV license, I don't know about people overseas with this. I don't think it's been shown on Disney Plus. I don't think they have it, but Amazon does have Doctor Who Unleashed, so maybe it'll turn up on there in time. I don't know. Let us know your experience and what you think. Get back to us in the comment section with some more of your thoughts, your observations, your pet peeves, and your pot shots.